Okay, so welcome to another episode of Over Yonder. Today we're joined by Jonathan Beatty. Jonathan is a Hazard native, Hazard, Kentucky. He got his BBA and his MBA at the University of Kentucky, and then went on to join Procter and Gamble. He was called to do social entrepreneurship and social enterprise work, so he actually partnered with Servanta. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. And then went back to work at Amazon in Georgia. I just learned and has been working there for a little while, but the pandemic and one of the reasons we want to talk to you today has inspired you to reach back into that social entrepreneurship work, and you just founded I Love Books. So without further ado, welcome to Jonathan Beatty. So do you want to talk a little bit about what inspired you to transition from Amazon to I Love Books, or, sort of doing both at the same time? What was it that you saw?
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I certainly am grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit about my story. So I've been working at Amazon as a finance manager for about 3.5 years. And this past spring, when COVID hit, I was down in Georgia by myself, locked up, was seeing what was going on in the world, around the country, and felt really inspired to be a part of the solution. I had started a small business called Servanta back in 2014, was able to give 10,000 new books to kids in Kentucky and a couple of other states that I've lived, and went back to corporate, but always had this seed in my mind of my real work will be in the social enterprise, social entrepreneurship space. And so COVID hits, I'm by myself, I'm locked in, and I just had this feeling of you need to be a part of the solution. So decided to do what I told the University of Kentucky MBA students that I was going to do last year, which is start a company called ilovebooks.org. And I want to be clear, I Love Books is a for-profit social enterprise, even though the .org is on there. That was more of domain search. So started the company. It's not launched yet, but we will launch in the fall. And we're just a social enterprise that promotes literacy, learning, and education through apparel and accessories, and a mix between the Tom's brand and Newman's Own. So Newman's Own gives 100% of their profit. Blake Mykoski and the Tom's team started the one-for-one profit model. So we wanted to combine the two in order to make sure that all of our money, all of our profit was going to books, art, and music. When I think about how I've gotten to where I am right now, it's really a combination of those three things. So that's what we're on now.
That's so exciting. And for those who don't know, so before I was in the Gain Center, I was in the Gatton College of Business. And Jonathan was nice enough to come and speak to my students way back in, what was it, 2016, maybe? 2016? Yeah. And the program that he spoke to is called the Social Enterprise Scholars Program. I think it's been renamed since then, maybe Social Entrepreneurs now. But the idea is this for-profit social enterprise model is the way of the future, right? So they talked to, Nate Morris and Blake Mykoski and, Tai Luma Totes, all these companies that are using for-profit business models to affect change, and sometimes on a much more rapid scale than a nonprofit model, which is really interesting. So rethinking that corporate responsibility, especially for profit, I think that's really interesting and sort of the way of the future.
Yeah. Blake Mykoski and the team they've given over 100 million pairs of shoes with no donations. I think that in itself is an indicator to me that this model works. And when I learned about the book crisis in the United States and the tragic nature of illiteracy and really being a root cause to a lot of our societal woes, it immediately hit me. Someone should attach books to something. And so I spent the last few years just trying to figure out what it is and how you create that. And I'm very excited to show Kentucky, show the United States, show the world that this model can be a part of the solution. And with 16 million kids or so without a single book in their home in the United States, I think there's a big opportunity to just allow people to buy products and do good along the way. And we're going to see how that goes. I hope to set a really nice example.
I think you are, no matter where you are. And we talked about this before. I think you're one of the agents for social change, whether you're working for Procter and Gamble or Amazon or doing I Love Books. So this is how we start all of these Over Yonder episodes, with this question, and there's a little bit of a background to it. Is this your first pandemic, COVID-19?
Yes, and hopefully the last.
You're the first person I've interviewed who's had that caveat, and I so appreciate it, because yes, I think we're all just totally swamped with Zoom fatigue, COVID fatigue, mask fatigue. I'm teaching a class of 25 this semester, and I'll never learn their names, Jonathan, ever, because they're all wearing masks.
Yeah, never thought about that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hope it's our last.
So the next question I have is, have you been asked to do remote work in this moment? And if so, did you already have a home workspace? Was that an easy transition for you?
Yes, more so because the nature of what I do at Amazon is remote. While I'm accustomed to going to my two sites, I am very comfortable working from home. And while we didn't necessarily do it that often before the pandemic hit, it was something that was not an anomaly, so to speak.
That makes sense. So one of the things that has sort of been emphasized, at least I've seen it sort of in news stories and things like that, is how to boost your immune system, how to try to stay healthy, and things like that. And so we always ask folks, and I love that you're from Hazard, Kentucky, because I feel like my Appalachians always have really good suggestions. But do you have any home remedies? Anything that was like a staple in your house growing up for when you weren't feeling well, or to do like a little immune boost?
Not necessarily a staple in my home, but I do have what I believe is a really good solution, and that is juicing. I'm an avid juicer. So being able to consume all of the nutrients of fruits and vegetables and not necessarily get full off of the juice itself, I think is a really good, healthy way to stay strong and I guess you would say uh, anti-COVID, so to speak, like just trying to find ways to um, make sure you're taking care of your body. And obviously that goes for me. I know it's hard because, just being at home and wanting to be out and wanting to go grab food somewhere is a challenge. But I think even if it's just once a day, really, really good antidote, if you would say.
So what's your favorite juice? I mean, I'm taking notes here because I'm
Yeah.
already a vegetarian, so I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, but I've never done the juice thing. So what's a good starter juice?
Orange, lemon, carrots. And you can blend that a few different ways. So I like to put orange juice and watermelon and some carrots and lemon, maybe some type of mint, etc. Like you can really combine anything that you like as a whole fruit or vegetable and just break it down into something that's delicious and awesome to drink.
I love it. I love this idea. That's awesome. Well, I'm going to take notes of that and remember, especially because right now all I do is drink an emergency, one of those powdered things, and I'm sure that's not as good for you as an actual orange.
Yeah, these supplements I don't think there anything is a bad thing. I think everything should be incremental. So maybe you add the juice and the emergency to it, and next thing you know, you've got even more.
I'll have superpowers, I feel like, if I do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so you probably knew this question was coming because you're a book person and I'm a book person. We're arguably the book people. So what has been your pandemic go-to book? Or just a good book that you've read in, the last few months that you want to recommend?
The Alchemist. I'll repeat
I just read that actually.
the best, not the best, I would say my favorite story. A good friend of mine, his name is Albert, he gave me that book in 2014. I've read it once a year since then. And I feel like I am Santiago and you are Santiago. We're all Santiago just on our journeys to fulfill our personal legends. And highly recommend that book to anyone who just wants to be inspired and see what you can do in life, even though it's very quick read, very short story, but such an important concept for us as we get into our adult lives and think about our dreams and our visions and our goals. And I think that book does a really, really good job of laying it out in a way that's not preachy or teachy. It's more of just a simple story about a young boy. And so definitely recommend that. I also would recommend Think and Grow Rich. I would recommend The Four Agreements. Those are some of my go-to reads. The last one I would say is The Magic of Believing, which is more about the mind and how we control our mind and all of that. I don't want to go too far on like the mental stuff, but it would give anyone who's watching just an idea of how I think and why I believe in the way that I believe and act in the way that I act.
No, I love that. And my disclaimer to any viewers about The Alchemist is, I'll be honest, Jonathan, when I read it, I was sort of like, and I read it this year, so it's part of my 2020
Mhm.
bookathon. This has been a crazy reading year. But I read it and I thought, like, I don't get it. I didn't really get it. But since I read it, I find myself like referencing back to it mentally a lot.
Yeah.
Um, like things like maybe this is your personal legend, Chelsea, like things like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those that even if it doesn't grab you when you first read it, it's one of those that keeps kind of coming up, right? It sort of digs into your psyche a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a good one. So thanks for that recommendation. Maybe we'll have all the Gaines fellows read it. That'd be kind of cool.
Yes, it's a life changer. Even like you said, if it comes back later on in life, maybe it's a read that they initially look at, nice story, and then they think about it later when an idea pops in their head. It's like, well, how do I go execute this? What should I expect on my journey? And it also gives you the alternative of what happens if you don't pursue and the impact of that, not only as an individual, but the impact that it may have on the world if you don't choose to do what you are called to do, so to speak.
Right. Absolutely. And I really like what you said about how it's not preachy. And that's been interesting and especially in this moment. And I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but this moment of a sort of a racial reckoning that's happening across the country, and centering a lot around Kentucky. And there's a lot of books out there. And I've always been a little bit of a proponent for don't tell me, show me. Um,
Hmm.
so like, how can like fiction, the power of fiction or the power of memoir,
Yeah.
I think hits differently sometimes because again, you're not telling, you're showing. So you build this relationship with a character or a person, um, and it just hits different. So I mean, do you have like a memoir or anything like that that you've read lately that you want to recommend?
Uh, honestly, I've been more into how you go execute ideas. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a memoir recently that I've read. But I would say I agree with you 100% in terms of the way a reader can absorb information. And for me personally, I feel very similar in terms of just being able to read fiction, think about things, let my imagination go. and look at a perspective that maybe I hadn't looked at before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love it if you might talk a little bit about, I mean, we touched on this, obviously we were talking before, but you mentioned this is like sort of an interesting position to be in because you are, you said, I love Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's my home. I owe it, who I am today. But at the same time, Kentucky has had to reckon with a really, really, tough history, a really shameful past in a lot of ways, and then sort of a shameful current moment. Like you mentioned, the death of Breonna Taylor and the just total paralysis of that. There's been no movement. So if you could just talk a little bit about that Kentucky identity and what you're doing and some of the things that we discussed.
Yeah, I am very proud Hazard, Kentucky native. Anyone who knows me knows where I'm from. And I love Kentucky because I'm from here and I love who I am. If I was from New York, I'm sure I would feel the same. But being in Kentucky is, in particular, coming from Hazard, Kentucky, I've had my own experiences with prejudice or racism and such. And I think that it's very important we understand the first step in solving any problem is the acknowledgement of a problem. And I think that's what Black Lives, not even the organization, I think Black Lives Matter as a hashtag, as a concept, is really just saying, look, we have to start with acknowledging what's happened. And it's not like me as a Black person, I'll speak for myself. I don't want anyone to come do anything for me. I just want the acknowledgement that this is why my people, as in Black people in the United States and beyond, this is part of the reason why we are where we are. The United States was unique in that it's the only country that had slaves who were not permitted to read. And that was a big deal. And so if you think about why only so many kids, whatever percentage of brown or Black boys aren't not reading at grade level, there's a reason to it. There's a history. And even with what I do in my day job, and what I've done throughout all of my career in corporate finance, it starts with looking at history. How did we get here? Why are we here? It's just a bunch of questions to get answers. Those answers give you facts. Those facts give you the ability to draw a conclusion, and that conclusion gives you the ability to make recommendations for change. I follow that same model in my personal life. And so I can understand why people from Eastern Kentucky may feel the way that they do about me without even knowing me. They grew up, somebody taught them that, somebody taught them that, someone taught them that. And ultimately it goes back to someone, hundreds of years ago saying that I, Jonathan, am not a full human being. And when you have folks that are being murdered and lynched for reading, for example, and I'll stay in that space since that's where I'm in, I understand not wanting to pass that down to your kids. It's literally a life or death decision. And so we have to understand why we're here, and that starts with acknowledging the problem. And so for me personally, I want to create solutions that are coming out of Kentucky. A lot of folks ask me, why didn't I start this in Atlanta, where I was before I moved back home? And it's because I believe that Kentucky can do something special. I think that we can take advantage of the moment that we're in, even as difficult as it is, there's still opportunity. And so while I can't control what's happening with the Breonna Taylor case, and I can't control what's happening with police brutality or some of the other issues that have been highlighted, what I can control is finding solutions to ensure at least kids have books and become literate. I then know that if they become literate, some of these other stats change, because I know that illiteracy is the root cause to a lot of these problems. So that's really my focus and why I'm back in Kentucky, why I wanted to create I Love Books out of Kentucky. I want it to be the epicenter of something positive and good versus what we're seeing right now.
Well, I think that was just perfectly said. And I think what you're doing is so great. And we're just so proud to have you in Kentucky. We're so lucky. And at times I would argue we don't deserve you. Honestly, but I'm so glad that you're here and doing that. That's really amazing. My last question for you is, this shift, COVID-19, and this, I think our president Capelluto has referred to it as the double, this sort of two emergencies in once, right? At once, dismantling a white supremacist system, both in education and universally, especially in this country, but globally too. And then navigating this health emergency, COVID-19, and how do we open our doors to students in a safe way, and that kind of thing. So this has, caused everyone to sort of adjust, not just their long term, but like day to day. Is there anything that you have had to change that you hope even after COVID-19 ends will stay? What's something where you're like, I know we're doing this because of COVID-19, but I really hope it doesn't go away once the pandemic is over.
That is a great question. My immediate answer is the connectivity that we have. Even though it's not physical, I feel like we're experiencing something as a unit, challenges as a unit, as humans. And I hope that that doesn't go away. I hope that we're able to keep the level of connectivity that this has caused us to have. And even though it's digital or virtual, like we're connecting right now, but it's intentional because you have to make it happen. You have to see folks. You have to communicate in a different type of way. And I think even in the physical world, where you and I were wanting to do the same interview, but I was in Georgia, we couldn't do that. Or even me being in Louisville now, we couldn't do that. I hope that we continue to make these proactive efforts in order to keep the bonding that we have. And I hope those bonds become stronger in a positive way, in particular with just humans. Like we're spirits in these human bodies. And I think once we accept and realize that, we'll understand that there's really no reason for racism or sexism or ageism or any other ism. It's we are truly the same when you take away the physical appearance. So that's what I hope stays the same. And I have a feeling that it will, maybe not to the level that it is now, but I do think that we'll keep at least a good portion of what we're seeing in that connectivity.
I love that. I feel like we should just set up like a weekly talk session, Jonathan.
I love to talk.
Right?
I love to share ideas and talk about ideas. And I was on a Zoom call last night with a few of my friends, and we were talking about, what can we do as individuals and collectively to create change. All of them, it's probably 5 or 6 of us, all of us are from Kentucky. We all have a passion for doing something good in the world. And I feel like it's going to happen. There's really no reason why it can't. And my personal goal is to share my story, to share my vision, my dreams that I have for seeing the world different for my nieces and my nephews and my godkids and my friends' kids and the kids that I hope to serve one day that I don't know and may never know. I just want good in the universe. And I believe that it's my responsibility to do my part and inspire other people to learn what their part is if they don't know, and then go act on that. I live by a mantra: simple: faith in action, believe and act on that belief. And that's what's brought me to this point. And I hope that it continues to take me where I want to go in order to fulfill my personal legend. So let's talk. Let's do it.
I love it. And I love that faith in action, because I feel like too often those things get somehow unbound from each other. And so always making sure it's like, does the action correlate with the faith that I have in, in whatever, and vice versa. That's super important. Do my actions reflect my faith? So this is going to be airing, across the university. But I always like to ask, we've got a group of 24 fellows, Gaines fellows. These are students who are looking at a variety of different issues through a lens of humanities. They come from every major and program across the university. They're very representative of the student body. I would say the only thing they have in common is a demonstrated commitment to their education and to fulfilling their personal legends, a nod to the alchemists again. What advice would you give these students as they sort of, navigate their final years at UK?
Believe in yourself. I find it fascinating that we tell children to believe in yourself and you can do anything and go chase your dreams. And then at some point we stop doing that and we tell them to be realistic. But in the words of Will Smith, being realistic is the most commonly traveled road to mediocrity. So I don't be realistic or create a different version of reality. For me, I look at my life and none of this is realistic. Going to do what I've done and travel the places I've traveled, get the education that I've acquired, none of that was realistic, statistically speaking. So to the students, find out what it is that you want to do and don't let anyone deter you from doing what you want to do. All of us have gifts and talents. Find your gifts and talents. You probably know what they are. And if you don't, search for it. When you find it, act on it. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in that the universe will conspire to give you everything that you want if you're willing to work for it. Nothing in this life is free. And I think it's very important that we express that on the front end so that they know there may be challenges that come along, but in the end, it will be worth it. And that just shows the power of choices. And I really believe in the power of choices, the ability to say, this is my responsibility. Even though I didn't cause this to happen, it's still my responsibility to do something about it or change my situation. I don't believe in getting things for free. I believe in working. So again, to the students, believe in yourself, believe in your dreams and your visions, trust your heart, and follow that. And it may be different than what your family has done or what your family wants you to do. A lot of people will give you input into your life, but the only person that can tell you what to do with your life is you. And sometimes we don't even know who we are until we start going down this journey of trying to discover why we're here and what is our into the universe. So work harder than everybody, outwork everybody. That would be my individual, like outwork everybody, believe in yourself, and keep going regardless of what happens.
I'm excited for what I Love Books is going to do for students in Kentucky. And I'm excited for this moment. I'm so happy you're back in Kentucky, Jonathan. I can't tell you. Um,
Thank you.
and yeah, I'm just thrilled to have you, and I can't wait to share this with the UK community.
Well, it is my pleasure. I appreciate you even considering me to speak with you today. And I wish you all the best. I wish the students all the best. I would say my last thing, fear. Fear is not a good, it can be a good thing, but in a lot of cases, we don't use it for a good thing. Do not let fear make decisions for you. Overcome the fear. Fear typically is just mental. So whatever the challenge is, whatever the belief is, just be fearless. And like you said, I think that was brilliant. Like pivoting is not bad. It's okay to make changes. And typically when we don't want to do things like that, it's fear driven. What will somebody say? Maybe it doesn't work. Everything will work out in time. You just got to have that faith and put in the work.